Hello ladies and gentlemen. Are you ready to learn how your Sirui 24mm can do more than what you thought possible? I've made similar experiments for the 35 and 50mm, so maybe you've seen those. It's time for us to go wider, get closer, and be more anamorphic. In this video, I'll cover close-up filters to improve minimum focus and the varying squeeze factor. We'll look at a different wide-angle adapter that gives a lot more field of view than my previous experiments, and I'll quickly walk you through how to install an oval insert inside the lens to get stronger anamorphic bokeh. There are links to all of those things in the description of the video. I'll begin by saying that CinemaScope members of the channel have had 2-week early access to this video, and budget members had since Friday to watch it and get these items. So if you're not sure what any of that means, check the join button below for information on memberships. You'll get more videos, more anamorphic cookbook, and more support, as well as many extra features by signing up. Bonus feature, I made focus and iris gears for this baby. They are 3D printed and they fit snugly around the rings. So if you're missing them on your 24, there's a link in the description for them. Now let's begin with diopters. These are also called close-up filters, and they hack your infinity focus. They move infinity to a closer point depending on the power of the filter. The most common powers are +1, +2, and +4. And since our 24mm already has pretty good minimum focus, those powers should be enough for us. I'm using a quirky accessory to attach filters to my Sirui 24mm, following the lead of Matthew Stern. It's a swing-away filter system that allows me to quickly toggle between with or without a close-up filter in front of the lens. I'm not sure I love the solution yet, but it definitely beats screwing and unscrewing these filters between the 3 lenses of the set. Just make sure you get the right size for the filters and adapter rings. I recommend 77mm for everything and step up rings to set a standard number across the set. So in this case, I'm using a SIMMOD ring that goes from 72mm, which is the front of the lens, to 77mm. As for how diopters affect your focus, there's a bit of math to do. Your new infinity is at 1 over diopter power in meters. I realize that I keep saying infinity. What I'm referring to is the marking on the lens. When you set focus to infinity here, you're actually focusing at the distances on the screen. +1 maxes out at 1 meter or 3 feet, +2 maxes at ½ a meter or 1'7", and +4 goes as far as 25 centimeters or 9 inches. Native minimum focus for the Sirui is 0.6 meters. So for this setup, I'm gonna have the +1 or the +2, depending on how close I really wanna get. The good side effect of using diopters is that you'll also improve a bit on the squeeze changing over the focus range. If you're not familiar with the idea, the short version is, as the Sirui lenses focus closer, their squeeze factor shrinks with 1.33 at infinity and 1.25 at minimum focus. So when you're using diopters, you're focusing closer to infinity on the lens, and that makes you always a bit closer to 1.33. If you want a more lengthy explanation on this, check chapter 3 of module 2 in the Anamorphic cookbook. Cool, so we got closer. Now let's get wider. I've previously used a Century 0.8 times wide-angle adapter and the Fujinon WCV82SC 0.82 times also wide-angle adapter. Those were both rare to come by and sort of expensive. So now I'm trying out the Merkury Optics 0.45 times HD wide-angle adapter with macro. Hey, I didn't name the thing, okay? The 72mm version is a little challenging to find, but it sells for 15 to 40 bucks, which is a fraction of the cost of the previous two options. It also goes much wider, although it compromises the edges a bit. But the Sirui 24 is so sharp that this compromise doesn't hurt at all in my view. This thing goes so wide, in fact, that I don't need a wider lens than this. This time, going wider was a breeze. If you try out other wide angle adapters, please leave a comment below saying how they perform. Everyone else thanks you. Now, let's make it look more anamorphic. Before starting this part, make sure you have your oval insert, which you can get from my store, the link is below, and you have painted it black. This is a more complex process and it involves disassembling a part of the lens. The first thing we'll need is a soldering iron or a hot air gun to warm up the screws, holding down the lens mount, and loosen the Loctite or the thread locker that's jamming them. I've already done that, so no more strip screws around here. So we take out the 4 screws and then we can remove the mount. After removing the mount, just set it aside and you can grab and unscrew all of the rear group together. This ring might come off. Don't tilt the lens. Just grab the threads underneath it and unscrew it out. You're gonna see it pop off. So before doing anything, I'm just gonna add the locking ring back here. This leads us to the aperture mechanism. Here we'll drop an oval insert aligned with the barrel so the oval faces the right direction when mounted on the camera. And we'll close the lens back up carefully. So we want to align it with this dot on the lens so the oval faces the right direction when mounted on the camera. And we'll close the lens back up carefully. Now, when we mount this onto the camera, we can see that the ovals are much more pronounced than they were before the modification, right? Much more anamorphic looking. This comes at the cost of some light transmission, which can be a tough call since this lens is slower at f2.8. After installing the insert, you can still use your aperture ring normally, but stopping the lens down will lead to reduced ovals again. So I highly recommend that you keep the lens wide open and use a variable ND filter to control exposure. Last, these are mostly cosmetic touches, which is why I highly recommend them. Make those lenses as good looking as the images they make. I like adding SIMMOD's 80mm OD front rings to all my lenses. So in this case, it's a 72 to 77 ring, plus a fancy looking engraved lens cap to match the other ones in the set. I already mentioned the focus and iris gears at the start. This is the cap for the 35mm, but I'm getting one made for the 24. Caps, front ring, focus and iris gears, and you're ready to roll. I'd also make sure that you get proper step rings so you can use all of these things at the same time and not get stuck in a position where you have to choose either close focus with diopters or using the wide angle adapter. Check filter sizes and get a ton of step rings. They're cheap and always useful. We made it to the end. This was a long one, so thanks for sticking around. Out of those upgrades, what is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments below. I hope that you have an excellent week and I'll see you again on Thursday for a live stream. Chitteverherdings out.